I have hit the record button.
All right, very good. So this is Dan Hanlon at Midland IRA, and I want to thank you guys for all joining us on our webinar, either if you're with us live or if you're viewing the recording of the webinar. And when was it, Jeff? Maybe 2 or 3 months ago at a RIA meeting, I first met Jeff Watson, and he was speaking about how to use a self-directed IRA for some creative note investment structuring and different investment types that you could do using notes within a self-directed IRA. And I've been handling self-directed IRAs at Midland for about 7 years. And it was one of the first presentations that I've seen that I can remember where I actually, for as long as I've been in IRAs and doing it every day, that I actually learned something. So I felt like it was necessary to welcome Jeff on so that he could share his insight and his knowledge with our client base. So I wanted to introduce Jeff Watson. Before I do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about Midland IRA. Jeff, if you could go to the next slide, where it has our
like that one right there with your smiling face.
My smiling face and your serious pose. So a little bit about Midland IRA. We're, for those who know and don't know, I would expect many clients being on this. I'm coming to you from our Chicago office. We have offices in 2 locations, Chicago and Fort Myers, Florida. Jeff, if you could go to the next 2 slides here.
There you go. There's Chicago, and there's this.
Yeah, this is an important step. So we're going to be talking about some concepts about how to use a self-directed IRA in some different forms and fashions. Midland IRA does not provide any financial, investment, tax, legal, or investment advice. It's important that you discuss any potential deal or structure that you do within your self-directed IRA with an attorney, accountant, or financial advisor. Jeff, is there anything that you'd like to elaborate on that?
I would like to tell you that this presentation is for educational purposes only. And while it's deemed to be authoritative and accurate, I am not giving legal advice. I'm not rendering legal, tax, or accounting advice. And that if the services of a competent professional are, if you do need it, you get the services of a competent professional, someone who understands this field. And there are a growing body of us out there, accountants and lawyers that do understand this. So they're out there. Look around for them. And many people are blessed to have more than one choice to work with. So it's good.
All right, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you now. Then this is going to be your slideshow.
All right. So awesome. Thank you. So a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads going, well, who is this guy that Dan has got onto the webinar? And why in the world, if it's important to Dan, I guess it must be important to me. So who in the world is this guy? So let me tell you a little bit about who I am and so on. I'm a member of the Ohio Bar Association now for over 27 years. I've been a real estate investor since 1994. I still own the property I bought in January of 94. In fact, I walked through it this morning as we're doing a tenant change on the downstairs part of that unit. I've had a couple of interesting career things happen to me in the real estate investing space, and because I'm also a lawyer, I had the opportunity to co-found a company called Realeflow LLC in 2006. In 2011, we made the Inc. 500 list among privately held fastest growing companies. I have been a frequent guest speaker at a lot of different events and meetings for real estate investors. And I'm getting to where I do less and less of that speaking because with technology today, I can do a lot more of this and this. I have been able to change a law in the state of Ohio 4 times via litigation, 1 time via legislation. I've also impacted federal tax policy on distress sales when it comes to GSEs, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, FHA, etc. I've changed how our federal government disposes of distressed properties. Helped change federal tax law twice. I'm currently working on advocating a targeted adjustment to part of Dodd-Frank and the SAFE Act as it relates to seller financing. And this slide is slightly out of date. We were successful in amending Ohio landlord-tenant law to better protect landlords from certain types of discrimination claims. We were able to get that done last December as part of a small team of very, very gifted and talented people to get that done. And National RIA took the main responsibility on that, and it's a pleasure to work with National RIA. I'm general counsel to both National RIA, general counsel to Realeflow LLC, and I have become a nationally respected expert on legal issues such as involving wholesaling and also on self-directed retirement account investing. So I have been blessed to do a lot while being a part-time real estate investor and a full-time lawyer. Some of you might be going, well, Jeff, that's all interesting, but what's in it for me? So let's talk about some things that should matter to you, and that is self-directed investing. We all want to be in control of our money. If you don't want to be in control of your money, then why don't you just take your money, split it into two piles, and send half of it to Dan and send the other half of it to me, and we'll be in control of it for you. Does that sound good, Dan? Okay, he's muted himself out. That's fine. All right, so what is self-directed investing? Folks, by the way, that was a joke, okay? I have a little bit of a weird sense of humor, and I will try and throw out occasional things just to see if you're listening and can appreciate my slightly sarcastic, offbeat humor. But self-directed investing is where you, the account holder, make the decisions and investments on behalf of your retirement account using your qualified trustee or custodian. And folks, you can invest in many, 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 many different things. If you can document it in writing and it's not specifically prohibited by the IRS code, you can do the deal with a self-directed account. There are a variety of accounts that you can self-direct, like IRAs. And so I'm going to just ask this question, and Dan, if you can help me out with this, by a show of hands, how many of you who are listening on this webinar have already opened up and are using a self-directed retirement account?
I see a lot of hands.
Need to know that. Pardon me?
I said I see a lot of hands remotely here.
Good. So let's talk about that, because there are some struggles with that, okay? And for those of you that have a self-directed retirement account, and for those of you that are either using it or trying to use it, how many of you believe that size matters? Okay?
I think that's
size
always
matters.
A common question. Jeff, that's always a common question when people first hear about what Midland IRA offers and the type of account. A lot of times people write themselves off and say, well, I don't have enough in my account to really utilize and do anything with it.
Every retirement account that has ever existed from 1978 till now, at one time or another, started with $2,000 or less. It just started with because $2,000 was the maximum amount you could contribute for decades. $2,000 a year. So size matters in some respects, at least in your mind, but then there's a way around it. Because I remember, I don't know about anybody else, but I remember being told by a mortgage lender, who I am still friends with today, who specialized in working with investors, that if I didn't have at least $50,000 or more in my self-directed retirement account, there was absolutely nothing he could help me do in order to do a deal. I remember walking out of his office just absolutely crushed. I had hopes that this guy by the name of Tom was going to be able to piece something together where I could take my measly $24,000, $25,000 and put it to work on something. And it just blew apart. He's like, dude, if you don't have at least 50 grand, he says, I can't do anything. I can't put you into any deals. And so I was like, yeah, there's got to be a way around it. And so let me ask you this, folks. Everybody listening to my voice right now, do you remember being told that it takes money to make money? Everybody, I think, has heard that. But here's the question. Do you agree? Do you agree that it takes money to make money? I don't agree. I think you can make money with things other than money. And I'm going to spend some time talking to you about that as we talk about using self-directed Roth accounts, particularly Roth IRAs. And when I say an IRA, I'm going to be referring to any type of self-directed account. My favorite is a Roth IRA, to amass wealth. And I use that word wealth deliberately and specifically because I'm going to show you how to overcome that small dollar dilemma. You know, that small dollar dilemma that I always describe, and I'll flip on my needy, whiny voice, you know, my needy, whiny voice, which is, but Jeff, I only have $8,000 in my IRA, so there's absolutely nothing I can do, right? I don't know which is more annoying, the question or the needy, whiny voice that I use, okay? I'm not sure which it is, but I do that because I've had people say that to me, and I'm like, that's not the truth. So I'm going to walk you through some specifics, some actual nuts and bolts specifics on overcoming the small dollar dilemma with options, wraps, partials, and profit participation loans. And Dan, I could literally spend a whole day. In fact, at that RIA where you and I met, I have spent a whole day talking about these kind of deals, talking about how to do it. And there's been folks from Midland IRA that came and sat there for the whole day. Okay? So let's walk through this. The first one is what I call a profit participation loan. All right, so here's some language. This screen might be a little hard to read, but that's okay. It's a purchase money note, and it goes back in 2009, my HSA account, and you can see where here, powerhouse pay the order of redacted, custodian, FBO, Jeffery S. Watson, HSA account, principal sum of $5,000. So it's a $5,000 deal. Now, Dan, you would agree with me that anybody that wants to can get $5,000 into an IRA or an HSA, correct?
Practically anyone can.
Because that's beneath the contribution limits. Okay, that's not even a max 1 year contribution limit. So I made a loan.
And you make, you know, as long as you work and you make $5,000 that year, you can put it into an IRA.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So you've got $5,000. I made a loan of $5,000, and in the term of the deal, second big paragraph here, where it says, in consideration for making this loan and in addition to interest stated herein, which is the 10% interest rate up here, lender shall receive a 50% share of the net proceeds from any sale of the property. So that's the profit participation. Net proceeds, I got 50%. Why? My $5,000 was the difference between this deal happening or not, this owner getting this house sold or not. How many of you remember what it was like in 2009 trying to sell properties? The only type of deal that you could get financing on was an FHA deal. The FHA appraisal was scheduled to happen. The carpeting and paint was not done. The investor who owned the property didn't have the money to do the carpeting and the paint. The property would not pass the FHA inspection. My $5,000 showing up when it did was enough for him to be able to go out and say, Jeff, I got your money. I'm going to go ahead and tell the contractor to go ahead and put in the carpet. I'm going to tell them to go ahead and paint. And he got it done in time, boom, bang, before the inspection came in, the appraisal came in, and then bang, got out of the deal, sold the house. And so here's a letter saying the investment funds were remitted according to instructions, $5,000. Okay? $5,000 was sent out. And now here's another letter that says on July 1st of 2009, so shortly after making the loan, that was the juice to make this thing go from failure to flying success. My custodian came back to me and says, okay, you sent out $5,000 a month ago. We're happy to tell you that there's $15,900 that came back. So folks, it was a deal where I lent $5,000 and I got back $15,900, which means I made $10,900 in a month off of $5,000. That's an awesome, amazing rate of return that you won't always do. Those are the occasional massive nice deals. But I did it because of the profit participation language. And by structuring the deal, working with somebody else who they knew that the only way that they were going to make anything was with working with me. They needed the money. They were tapped out. This was how we got it done. Now, Deal number 2 that I'm going to walk you through is what I call a partial note purchase. Dan, you and I both know that right now, note investing is a big, big, big deal. In fact, I'm going to be speaking at a note conference in about 3 weeks, and my whole topic is going to be on how to use self-directed retirement accounts to invest in notes. So I'm going to walk you through a deal I did where I used my HSA again. It's one of my favorite accounts to use. And I used an HSA to buy part of a note. Now you're going to say, well, Jeff, how do we know that this was actually a part of a note? Well, let's take a look at here. What's this first word in this box here where it says partial assignment of a note in a mortgage? If I'm only buying part of the note, I'm only going to get a partial assignment. Oh, by the way, it was with my HSA account, as you can see right here. Okay. So we did this deal that on the 31st of January 2012. Okay. For valuable consideration. Receipt of which is hereby acknowledged. Bang, bang. Okay. Then we bought 11.764% of a note, where the principal amount of the note was $92,391.30. The interest rate on the note was 15%. Is that a good rate of interest? That is a really good rate of interest. And so I wanted to be able to get a piece of that deal. I saw this deal coming together, made some conversations, helped connect some people together, and I said, oh, by the way, as part of helping this thing out, I want in on the deal. And so my HSA bought 11.764% interest in the note. Okay? Now, Dan, this deal did not go as planned. Okay? This note was supposed to pay off in about a year's time. It didn't. It paid off in a little bit over 2 years' time, which means, I'm going to jump back the screen here, okay, which means that my money that was deployed to buy almost 12% of this $92,000 note, that means that for 2 years, my money had to earn 15% interest.
Oh, darn.
I know. Can you imagine? It was stressful, man.
Yeah.
It was stressful. But no, we persevered through it, Dan. We persevered through it, okay? And the payoff came, and we were solid. It was full payoff. It was a great deal. So we were happy. Now, is that the only way to do a deal, where I bought part of the note after the note got funded? Because if you notice, I bought part of the note after the deal got funded. I bought a piece of it about 30 days afterwards, if you look at the paperwork there. So here's a deal where I bought part of the note by co-funding the loan. So at the origination, an investor needed $100,000. And the money was lent to the investor. The $100,000 was lent to the investor at 3 points and 15% on a 6-month term. I funded part of this note with money out of my HSA. I don't know why, but man, I just love doing stuff with my HSA. I think it's because I have to spend money out of it, for other things. So I want to keep putting money back into it through that. So we lent money out at 3 points and 15%, and I funded part of the note with my HSA. So we hummed along pretty good here, and here's some of the paperwork that shows this. Okay, it's an open-ended mortgage for $100,000 that an Ohio limited liability company is borrowing, and it's received from a certain LLC, and you see the word "and" blank as custodian, FBO, HSA number, so on, where then we both address deemed to be the address of the main lender, because I only bought a piece of it. And then each of their interests may appear under the respective cognate promissory notes further described within, with their interests deemed to be pari passu with one another pursuant to an intercreditor agreement executed between these lenders. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you something. This is pretty technical stuff. This is way more advanced than what you're going to hear from most anybody else. But don't get wrapped around the axle and stop and Google pari passu and intercreditor agreement. Don't worry about that stuff, okay? you want to start playing at this level, you'll learn these things, but that's not going to keep you back from doing these deals. This was a deal we structured with the help of a very sophisticated commercial real estate attorney that has decades of experience in the lending background. The other lender in this deal has decades of experience in the commercial lending arena. So they're playing with big boy stuff, not just average investor stuff. And I just jumped in the pool with them. And so that's why we used some pretty powerful documents. But it let us stand there shoulder to shoulder. We weren't a first and a second. We were shoulder to shoulder as equals based upon our respective dollar amounts involved. Okay, pari passu, shoulder to shoulder is the best way to say it, okay? It's not a direct translation, but it's a really good one for this. So, we also secured this with a mortgage. So we recorded an open-end mortgage deed, okay? Where the borrower, which was an LLC, so it wasn't a consumer, it was a business, borrowing the money of $100,000, and there's two lenders, blank LLC, and then my HSA, and then once again, we've got that same language here, okay? So then we also reference the mortgage and such. So we're papering this thing up with notes, mortgages, and an intercreditor lending agreement. So we're good. We understand what we're doing between the two lenders. The borrower understands what they're doing because they're signing a note and a mortgage, and everything's locked down and nice and tight. So now here's deal number 4. Oh, by the way, that deal, I'm going to go back to this one, Dan. My investment on this deal, $3,000. $3,000. Okay? But folks, let me ask you this question. Can you find $3,000 to put into an HSA or an IRA? Yes, you can. Okay? It's then all about creating the relationships to network with other people to be able to do these deals. Okay, so now here's another deal we did. Okay, go ahead.
Hey,
what
Jeff,
is it, Dan?
I just wanted to stop real quick. So one of the things that you talked about at the meeting where we first met, and I think it's really important, is there's kind of two pieces to the puzzle here. There's the knowledge of knowing the types of structures and just the bare bones that you can use an IRA in this fashion, and don't write off a balance, whether it's a large IRA balance or a small IRA balance. But the other piece of the puzzle that you brought up that was really helpful is that there's so much power in networking, and that you would have probably, I would say, never have found these deals if you weren't out building the relationships and getting to know the different deals that some of your partners, friends, and acquaintances were getting into, and that your knowledge and that relationship gave you this opportunity. Is that all fair in saying?
That is very accurate. That is very accurate. I will tell you that every deal that I do now comes from a relationship because of the networking and connectedness that I have. Every deal I do, whether it's somebody calls me up and says, "Hey Jeff, do you know somebody? I'm looking for money," or somebody will call me up and go, "Jeff, I got some money to deploy. Do you know any good deals?" Or whether it's something else, everything I'm doing is because of a relationship. I don't do any marketing. I don't do, I don't have a web presence for that purpose and so on. No, it's all about networking. It's all about relationships. It's all about going and meeting people that are like-minded and that you then believe, like, and trust and want to work with. Later this month, I'm going to meet with another investor when they're passing through town. We're going to go look at a house deal that I'm putting together where I'm going to try and do this deal. I'm not going to try to do this deal. I'm going to do this deal probably with my self-directed Roth IRA, where we buy a house, get it cleaned up, and immediately then sell it out on a land installment contract. And my IRA is going to own the back end of the payment stream. The other investor is going to put up the bulk of the money. I'm going to let them get their money first, and then I'm going to own the back end. And it could be something very simple where about $5,000 from my IRA will give me, let's just pull a number out of the air, 80 payments of $600 a month, beginning in 4 or 5 years from now. Those aren't firm numbers. I don't have my calculation sheet in front of me, but just imagine being able to take $5,000 and turn it into 80 payments of $600 a month. 80 payments of $600 a month is suspiciously like $48,000. And so if I can take $5,000 now, work with another investor, get a house, get control of it, put someone in there who's going to buy it from me and make payments back to the lenders, and the first lender who's put in the bulk of the money gets their money first, and then once they're paid back, then the payments start coming into my IRA. How many of those deals do you need to do, Dan? How many of those deals do you need to do to start taking a $5,000 or $6,000 Roth IRA and just literally put it on steroids in the weight room? It will bulk up. It will grow. Does that make sense?
Yep, I follow along here.
Okay. So, you know, but it all comes down to relationships. Oh, by the way, how did I find out about this deal? How did I find out about this house deal? A guy that I've done other deals with calls me up and says, hey, Jeff, I had a stroke. I need to sell a house. How did I find out about the people who may want to buy it? Because I ask questions about who's in the neighborhood, what's going on with the houses. You know, oh, these people they're looking to move. They've been in the neighborhood for 18 years, but they would love to own something instead of just renting because they're afraid that the landlord that they have now is going to sell the house that they're in. I mean, you know, when you hear something like that and you're looking at your house and you can't figure out how to start putting all that stuff together, man, you know, you got to start listening. You got to start listening with the intent of being able to help people. All right, so let's talk about another deal I did. This is a really interesting deal. I don't like doing a lot of these deals because these deals, an option on a house, these deals, if you do too many of them, will look bad in your IRA. So a $500 option deposit from my mom's Roth IRA secured the right to be able to buy a house that was being rehabbed. The house sold a few months later for more than the option price. I think my mom had the right to buy it. I think my mom's Roth IRA had the right to buy it for, I think, $82,000, $84,000, and the house ended up selling for like $112,000. So my mom's Roth IRA was paid a $10,000 fee to release its option. $500 out, $10,000 back. Not a bad day, not a bad year, but I'm going to tell you, folks, that's the type of deal that I see a lot of people abuse because that's the way that they're trying to stuff their IRA the wrong way. That's the only deal I've done like this. I don't think I'll get to see another one like it, but it was just one of those situations where the rehabber was trying to lock in a sales price, and I thought the house had potential. And so I locked in a sale price at $82,000 with a $500 option deposit. My mom had like a 1 year. My mom's Roth had like a 1 or 2 year option on the thing, and turns out the rehabber did a good job, and the market surprised him, and he sold it for more. And so we took a $10,000 release fee, and away we rolled. All right. So another thing that you can do to grow a small balance IRA is to wholesale a house or two. If you start wholesaling several houses a year with an IRA, it looks very much like a business, and it could very quickly trigger unrelated business income tax, UBIT. But you can wholesale a house or two every year, and that does not look like an active trade or business. So here's a scenario of how to do the wholesale deal. It's a step-by-step formulary that we've sketched out with the help of a couple of different custodians and trustees and administrators. So I'm going to walk through this pretty quickly, Dan, because I want to leave some time towards the end, all right?
Yep.
Step one, the investor negotiates and fills out both a purchase and sales agreement to buy the property and a direction of investment. You're the investor down here. Step two, the investor sends the cover letter and the purchase and sales agreement with a direction of investment to the custodian. Step three, the custodian sends the cover letter, executed purchase and sales agreement, and earnest money to the REO agent. When REO properties aren't moving fast, this scenario works. If REO properties are moving fast, lightning fast, here's my strategy. You, the account holder, sign the purchase and sales agreement in your capacity as the account holder. Read and approved for investment by Joe Blow, account holder. Yes, your custodian or your administrator is still going to need to sign off on it. Midland is still going to need the purchase and sales agreement. They're still going to need to sign off on it. Midland knows that. You know that. The REO agent doesn't know that. Go ahead and listen to me say that again. Wind it back up and listen to me say it again. When you're in a hurry and it's a hot market and you got to get something under contract right away and you don't have time to wait around, one of the things that you can do is sign the purchase and sales agreement in your capacity as account holder. Read and approved for investment by Joe Blow as account holder. Now, you don't put your personal money in there. Don't you dare do that. You tell the REO agent, hey, as soon as we get this thing countersigned back by the seller, we can get the earnest money in. Okay? Don't sign a promissory note for the earnest money and then have your IRA make good on it. Don't you dare do that. Okay? Don't you dare do that. All right, so but that's a trick. That's a little trick that you can do. All right, so then step 4 is the custodian and the title company close on the purchase. That means the IRA had the money to buy the house. Imagine that, somebody trying to wholesale a house and they actually have the money to do the deal with. Wow, how refreshingly accurate and honest is that? I love it. Step number 5, the investor negotiates purchase and sales agreement number 2, fills out the direction of investment form, sends both in a cover letter to the custodian or administrator explaining, hey, this house we just bought, the house that's titled in the name of my IRA, well, we're going to sell it now. Step 6, the end buyer sends money and signed docs to the title company. Step 7, the custodian and the title company close on the second deal. Oh, by the way, Dan, do you know what this next step is after that, after the deal closes? What's the next step, Dan?
Funds come back to the IRA?
Exactly. Exactly. The funds, all proceeds of the sale, go back into the IRA. Tax free. Tax free. Does free do anything for you? You know, I'm a little quiet. Normally I'm a little more jacked up on this, but I've already done more today than most people will get done today, and because my day started at 4 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and had a good day, got a lot of stuff already done. So I'm a little calm, trying to be sedate, and just trying to not overwhelm people, because sometimes I come across way too hot, way too loud, way too aggressive, and I'm trying to be a little calmer. Now, here's wholesale scenario number 2. And it's really simple, folks. This scenario, the difference is this. You don't have the money in your IRA to fund the deal, but you found a private lender who will lend your IRA the money on a non-recourse basis. So instead of walking you through all of the moving parts of this one, let's just talk about the private lending situation. Your IRA can borrow money. Your HSA, your 401k, your CISA, they can borrow money. But borrowing that money with an IRA, CISA, HSA, and so on will trigger UBIT. Borrowing money with a 401k may not trigger UBIT, because there's a second factor. If the 401k is running an active trader business, it will trigger UBIT. So just borrowing money alone won't trigger it. But I know a lot of people who want to run their entire wholesaling business through a 401k and think that they're going to get away with it, and they're not. So the non-recourse loan is made by a private lender to the IRA. What do I mean by non-recourse? The account holder does not sign the promissory note. The account holder does not put his credit, his assets, or anything else at risk. The only way that the lender can be made whole is by securing the collateral and using the collateral on liquidation to repay the loan. So these are a little more difficult, a little more complicated loans. You'll see a little higher interest rate on it. And the folks who will make these non-recourse loans are pretty savvy investors. And they understand what's going on, and they are out there. All right. So let's talk about my favorite one. Dan, I think I kind of saved my favorite, because These are my go-to deals today. Today, I do more of these wrap loans with a self-directed retirement account or self-directed retirement dollars than any other kind of deal I do. So let's kind of just set the stage here, okay? You've got three different people involved. You got three different people involved, and everybody can relate to this. There's a investor. They have found a fantastic deal. The problem is they are $250,000 light on having the funds to buy the $260,000 house. They got 10 grand, so they're only $250,000 light. Okay? But they know people who know people. And they go to the seconding investor. And folks, that would be you, that would be me in this scenario. That would be Dan in this scenario. And the seconding investor has a little bit of money. They've got some connections with both the property owner and other people, and they know what investing is. And so they're able to turn around and go, oh, you need $250,000. Okay, and it's good collateral. Okay, let me see what I can do. Because the seconding investor, they've got a little bit of money themselves. They got maybe 10 grand of their own money, 15 of their own money. And they know other people who've got money that they want it working harder than they're working. And so they go find somebody else who's got the money and wants it working, but they don't want to have to work hard to make their money work. And they put the deal together that there will be 2 loans being made to the investor. One note is wrapping the other note. There are mortgages recorded to secure both of the notes, and away they go. So let's walk through some more of this. The investor that you find that has the deal needs the money. You've located the money. You negotiate terms with both the investor borrower. Hey, listen, you're going to pay me 3 points and 15%. The money person, hey, you're going to get 1 point and 10%. And you loan some money, like 10 grand, wrapping the $240,000 first note, and the spread between the two goes into your note. Because the payment is made on a $250,000 note that you have signed over to your IRA, wrapping the $240,000 note at 10%. Yours is at 15%. Yours is at 3 points. Theirs is at 1 point. And so you can see that your note is bigger than the other one, and the difference stays with you. The underlying goes to the first lender. So I'm going to walk you through a scenario. Here's a deal that came to me a while back. Investor needed 30 grand ASAP within 2 weeks in order to close. They agreed to pay back $36,000 in 12 months, beginning December 1st of 2015. After that, they were willing to pay 30% of the net rents for as long as they owned the property. And they anticipated they'd own the property for about 4 to 5 years. The rent was $3,750 a month for this 2-unit building. So we went ahead and structured the deal. They needed 30 grand. I got them 30. They were agreeing to pay $36,000. So let's just go back over this, okay? And I got it to where the first person lent $29,700, and I took $300 and put it to work wrapping around and working behind the $29,700. The $300 came from a very small Roth IRA account. Dan, is there any reason in the world why somebody can't get at least $300 into a Roth IRA?
Yeah, not today. You can, even if your income's too high, you can always convert money into a Roth. You can get money into a Roth. Yeah. Now, Jeff, you, at our presentation, I know 2 people asked you this, and I can almost guarantee that either someone that's watching live or someone that's going to view a recording of this is going to think to themselves, why would someone, in this case, why would someone lend $29,700 and allow you to take such a large percentage with your small investment? I know the answer to this, but what would you say why someone would be inclined to participate in that deal?
The guy with the $29,700 doesn't know anything about the deal until I call him up and tell him about it. and their money is sitting there doing nothing, and a 34, almost 35% rate of return is very appealing to them on money that currently is earning 1% sitting in a money market. Otherwise, without me, they don't know about the deal.
So like I've always told people, there's power in the knowledge of knowing, obviously with building relationships, but also with just knowing this type of structuring, and that you know, that 29.7 could have come from an IRA. It doesn't necessarily have to, but just knowing that an IRA or an old 401k is an option for people to privately lend out of their account. It allows you to reap a reward in this case, but to also help, like you're saying, Jeff, help someone who's just kind of sitting on the sidelines and don't have a deal on hand.
Right. They don't have a deal. This guy with the 29.7 is living in Tampa, Florida. The deal's in Chicago, Illinois. What do you think the chances are that he's going to know about this deal? Absent me being able to connect the people together and go, hey, listen, I'm jumping in with this thing, there's no way in the world the Tampa money was going to get into this deal. Okay? And it took people who understood what the deal was and be able to explain the deal. So that's what we did. So here's a graphic representation of what we did here. The $300 wrapped around the 29.7. Okay? Now, you're going to say, well, Jeff, you know, do you teach this stuff? And I go, I'll talk to you a little bit about it, but this is something that I share with folks. Is the expert who taught me this is my dear friend, Dorsey Bodiford, out of Marietta, Georgia. And here's a link for which Midland IRA gets no benefit, for which I get no benefit, but Dorsey does get a small benefit. If you want to learn more about how to wrap for profits, the definitive guide to wrap lending for huge returns, that's the link that you want to do. So I'm going to leave it up on the screen so that you can get it copied down, assets101.com, you know, and then it's /product /wrapping for profits. If you just can get to the assets101.com website, you can go from there and learn a term, get and figure it out from there. All right. So now you're going to say, well, hey, Jeff, it's been interesting information. I'm glad you went through things pretty quickly. I'm glad you saved time for questions. But at the same time, how do we keep track of what you're doing? How do we know more about what's going on? Well, I've got this blog called Watson Invested, because I'm an investor. And you might have seen the term Watson Invested on a lot of the slides. If you want to find out what I'm doing, if you want to say, hey, listen, that's pretty good information, I want more of it, go to watsoninvested.com, and there's an opportunity for you to enter your email and your first name and sign up to receive my biweekly email newsletter. I send it out every Tuesday, every Thursday, unless something really significant has happened, and sometimes I'm a little late, sometimes I'm a little early, but anyhow, we've only been doing this now, Dan, for 6 years, so we're pretty consistent at it. I've got about 18,000 people that read my emails, and they're content, and I've got people that are rock star, genius level CEO type investors, and I've got brand new, just beginning investors, and I've got a lot of established mom and pop investors that read my emails and put them to work and apply them. So Dan, with that being said, I think I'm pretty much to the end of the presentation. I was able to give an example of how to do deals with small dollar accounts so that we don't have to hear people going, but I only have a few $1,000s and I can't do anything with it. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I just gave you an example of what I did with $300. Some of you that are listening to this have dropped $300 or more on one meal for your family. Okay? So don't tell me you can't find $300. All right, Dan, you got any questions for me, brother?
Yeah, so could you go to the very last slide just so you have our contact information up there if people want to take it down? And then if you all, we have a...
There you go. Box. Is that the one you're talking about, man?
Yeah. I wanted to get my smiling face up there again in your serious
Okay.
face. But so I'm going to go through some of the questions that people have listed on here, if you'd be so kind to answer them. There's a question
I'll do the best I can. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, there's a question earlier during the middle of the presentation where it says, does purchase money note create unrelated business taxes?
Does purchase money note create UBIT? If the IRA is borrowing money, then yes. If the IRA is lending money with a purchase money note, then no. The IRA UBIT is only triggered when the IRA is borrowing money, not when it's lending money.
Okay, so the gentleman who asked that question followed up during it and said the notes where you participate in the profits, does that generate the unrelated business taxable income?
That's an interesting question. There's a difference of opinion out there in the field. I believe there's an author, published author, that thinks that it may in certain instances. I've looked at the cases and stuff cited, and I don't read it the same way. And once again, I'm going to tell you, you're a passive investor. You're a lender. You're not engaged in the management of the property. You're not engaged in the operations. You don't know who the tenants are. You're not collecting the rent. And you're only receiving a benefit of the net rent, not the gross. I don't see where it triggers UBIT. There might be others who think otherwise, and guess what? You get to make your decision by doing your own research.
Yep. All right, and then another question was, can he address who you can lend to, i.e. not family members? So I can actually tackle that one. So
please do.
Yeah, your IRA or the IRS has certain parties that are considered disqualified persons to your IRA. And those parties are basically people that you cannot lend to. You cannot own a property for which one of these parties will benefit from, nor can they be on one side of the table, either the buyer or the seller if your IRA is on the opposite side. Those parties are pretty simple. First and foremost, it's the account holder, the fiduciary of the plan, the spouse of the IRA holder, and then any children, grandchildren, parents, and grandparents. Those would all be off limits to receiving a loan or lending to in this case. All right, that was the last of the questions. Does anyone have anything else? We'll give you a minute to type it over into the chat box. But I want to thank Jeff for his time and allowing, giving us the time and going over some of these slides with us. His contact information is up there. If you have questions for him, I'm sure he doesn't mind if you reach out to him. At Midland IRA, we're always helpful here. Best that we can to help with your self-directed IRA. If you have any of these deals that come to fruition, again, we'd be happy to process them for you. But I want to take a minute just to thank everyone for being on this call today.
Yes, thank you. And Dan, I'm going to give a couple of observations here. Get your accounts set up and funded before you start putting these deals together. It just makes it so much easier to do. Secondly, get the account set up, get money in it, then start looking for the deals. I'm going to say it a different way so everybody understands it. The last comment I'll make is the contact information you see up on the screen is valid, but if you call my office thinking that you're going to chat with me, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't do that. Every phone call is scheduled. Dan, for how long have we had this call scheduled?
About 2.5 months.
Yeah. So and folks, this happens every day. Someone gets my phone number, calls my office, and goes, "Hey, is Jeff in? I got a quick question I need to ask him." It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Instead, we're going to get your contact information, complete contact information, and we're going to send you a consulting form. And you're going to get a chance to fill out what your question is and what you're talking about. You're going to get a chance to put it in writing and help you better synthesize it and so on, and then send it in to us, and then we'll schedule a time to talk with you. But this random pick up the phone and call me, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. We don't do it. And the other thing I'm going to tell you folks is that way I can, when you get your time with me, I am focused on just you and your question, not the 14 other things I just got interrupted from. Didn't answer your important quick question, that whatever. So please understand that. The last thing I'm going to tell you is business has been so good that here we are in October of 2017, and I am not taking on any new projects. Not taking on any new projects until after the first of the year. I've got a pipeline full of stuff, and I've got to get some things taken care of. And so I'm not trying to scare anybody away. I'm just telling you, plan ahead, and I look forward to working with you if you're ready to do it. So Dan, thanks for letting me say all that. I really appreciate it.
Excellent, and thanks for being part of the call. So we'll go ahead and stop the record button and end the webinar. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Let me